Welcome one and all, it's time for an Age of Sigmar battle report. Duardin versus the filthy, sneaky Gloomspite Gitz, aptly led by Remington. And as we bring up this slideshow there, you can now see exactly what we're looking at here. We've got Apex Predators scenario, 1,250 points. So, first of all, good evening, Mr. Remington.
Hello there, Andy. Can you hear me okay?
I believe
Yeah.
they can hear you perfectly.
Great. So let's just rephrase that intro. Andy's grubby little dwarves have invaded some clearly Gloomspite Gobbo territory, and we're just defending our homes here. That's what this is really about.
That's one way of looking at it. We can have a look at the picture of the setup here, and then we'll go back and have another look at the scenario. But you can see the forces there. We didn't know which scenario we were going to be playing when we chose our forces, so had we known that it was going to be Apex Predators, then we probably would have picked more heroes in our armies, because we only have 2 each. So if you look at the scenario, only heroes can actually claim the objectives. Otherwise it's just usual objective scoring. You can see they're in kind of a diagonal line there, and your setup area is pretty much like that, because you can't go within, I think it's 9 inches, is it, of your opponent's territory, so you can't be right up to the middle, which is a mistake we made previously. We are using battle tactics in this game as well. So, let's go through the forces. You can see it's quite a compact blob of Duardin there, so it's not just Cities of Sigmar Duardin, there's also some Kharadron Overlords in there. And I think technically the organ gun is from Ironworld Arsenal, which I'm not sure if it technically exists anymore. So the only other option, if I wanted to run it pure Cities of Sigmar, was to turn the organ gun into a volley gun, which is obviously not quite as exciting, because it's not a real dwarf weapon. So let's go through the forces, shall we? Look at this lovely cinematic shot. Obviously got to get the Iron Drakes in there. So this is obviously my old school classic Warhammer Fantasy dwarf army with Kharadron Overlords thrown in there as well. And let's see what we've got. So, Iron Drakes, 10 of them. 10 Longbeards with great weapons there. Then there's also the organ gun. 20 Hammerers.
Andy, you do get a lot of miniatures, don't you, for 1,250 points or whatever.
You do, but we haven't spent a lot of points on heroes in this game, so it goes quite far. We've got a Warden King there on an Oathstone. We've got 20 Kharadron Overlord Arcanauts with 2 of each of the special weapons, of course. Hammerers, obviously, they've got their banner, the musician, and a champion in there somewhere. And up there, we've got 20, actually, it's just 10 Ironbreakers, and there's also a Rune Lord behind them as well. So 2 heroes. Those are the only 2 models that I'm going to be able to score points on the objectives with. So it could come down to battle tactics and grand strategy as well.
So, Andy, you've got high armor saves in general, and you've got great leadership, and you've got some rend in there, right?
There's a bit of rend, not a vast amount of rend, but I do have access to more if required with the Rune Lord as well. He can apply rend to my units. So, pretty tasty fighting force, but they are quite slow, and for this scenario, those 2 very slow heroes may struggle to get round to the objectives. If Remington can use his superior speed and overall sneakiness, we shall see. So, what have you got in your army then? Is this your leader here?
That's the sort of that's the lieutenant, if you like. That is that is a loon boss on a giant cave squig, right? And next to him, we've got 10 squigs with 2 handlers, right? Now, squigs are pretty cool. They're what you call glass cannons, and I think they've got 2 wounds each. I think. Let me just check on that, because in my head I think they have, but do they?
That's a fair few of your models do have 2 wounds each, if I recall. I'm not sure if these specific ones
do. Yeah, they do. They have 2 wounds each, which is nice.
There you go. So it's a lot less squishy than it looks on paper, this army, because you've got a lot of wounds there compared to my army, where most things are just a single wound.
Yeah, there's ways to buff these up as well in terms of how they charge and how they hit and wound. They come with a -1 rend, which is going to be useful. And
Mhm.
so next to those lot, we've got a loon boss as my general. We've got a loon boss on giant mangler squigs, which should be a lot of fun because they're awesome. I think it's my favourite model in the whole Gloomspite Gitz army. Not just the model itself, but what it can do. It's just it's pretty durable and it can dish out a heck of a lot of damage.
We've got a question in the chat from Tim who says, the moon looks very cool. Are you using the rules for it in this game? Yes, we are. So you can go over that as well.
Sure. So because I've got Gloomspite Gitz squig generals, right? I can have squigs as battle line. So you don't see any of your standard troops here in my army. So that's why I've got squig hoppers. So I've got 10 squig hoppers next to the general there. They're just your standard ones. And I've got 2 units of 5 Boingrot bounders.
What's the difference between a Boingrot bounder and a squig hopper for those of us that aren't overly familiar?
So Boingrot bounders, they're better warriors. They're better on the charge. Both types of units have got 2 wounds, but the Boingrot bounders have a better armor save. They've got a 4-up natural armor save, whereas the squig hoppers just have a 6-up. And they've got these lancers, so they've got a further range, and they've got -1 on the rend when they're attacking. So that's kind of cool.
What's
and you
hiding
get
down here?
Sorry, you get this wonderful ability after you pick a charge move. On a 4+, the enemy gets a mortal wound. They're within 1 inch. It's called Boing Smash, and you add 1 to wound rolls when the poking lances are charging. So all in all, way better, slightly more durable. But as a result of that, you're paying 105 points for 5 bounders, and you're paying 180 for 10 average squig hoppers. So, and your squig hoppers are the battle line, really. So I had to have them in with the squigs. But yeah, basically to answer your question, the moon there. If I lose a unit of squigs, um, at the end of that round, I can roll a dice, and if I roll a 4 up, half of the unit comes back from emerging from the cave. So that's pretty cool because that Loon Shrine is free. It's a free bit of territory to bring in. So why wouldn't you, right?
Exactly.
Plus, it's a big bravery template as well. So Gloomspite Gitz units are not going to run away if they're within a certain distance of the Loon Shrine.
You also
So that's
have
kinda
the
cool.
bad moon as well that moves across the table, don't you?
Yeah, so the bad moon starts in a corner of my choosing, and you roll a dice at the end of the second, at the start of the second phase, I think, and the moon has a chance to move across the table or stand still. If the moon moves, and if it's in a quadrant where Gloomspite Gitz are, they receive some bonuses. One of those being squigs can run and charge, which is kind of cool. So yeah. So just to finish running down my army, just behind that moon, I've got a unit of goblin wizards, and when they come together, they are known as a Gobblerpalooza. So 2 of them are actually wizards, and the others have some sort of special abilities to sort of beef up units.
It's not quite an Andy Palooza, but it's not
Uh,
bad.
Yeah, so I mean, I think each one has like 3 wounds each or something. So yeah, they could be quite handy if you're within range. You can give your units +1 to attack or +1 to wound, or help them charge. And then of course the 2 wizards have got a couple of nice little spells. One's called a Shrewmancer. He sits on a little mushroom. Um, and what does he do? Oh, they've all got -1 to hit. In the first round if people are trying to shoot them down. So that's kind of cool. The Shrewmancer's got a Fungoid Cloud. So it's got a casting value of 6, pick an enemy unit within 8 inch of the caster, and you subtract 1 from hit rolls for attack. And you subtract 1 from save rolls. So that's kind of cool, but it's only got that 8-inch range. So you do have to get really close to the enemy, which then exposes your Shrewmancer as well. So it's kind of a mixed bag there. And the other wizard is called the Boggle Eye. and he's the sort of boss-eyed little goblinoid wizard, and he's got a mesmerize spell. So a friendly unit doesn't take battle shots test, which is absolutely crucial because something like the Squigs have a bravery of 4. So
Yeah, so even
they're
one
really like
casualty, you're right in the danger zone there, aren't you?
Yeah, so Tim's asking if you replace your units that get killed, if you manage to roll a 4 up, can you place them anywhere around the shrine? Yeah, within 9 inch of the shrine, but they have to be a certain distance from the enemy as
Yeah,
well.
so the enemy, if you get the opportunity to surround that thing, you can potentially prevent units from being brought back, can't you?
Yeah, but you do round up. So say if your unit had five models in it and they all got killed, and you successfully roll the Loon Shrine roll, you round up. So 3 of them would be coming back because you can't get 2.5 right in terms of models. So
Not bad indeed.
there's
So,
that. It's kind of good. You can't replace them twice over as well. By the way, only once
I'll just
per
give
unit.
people a little bit of a taste of some of the special rules in my army in case they're not familiar with the Duardin. So Iron Drakes, they're outside of their stat line, their main boost is when people are shooting at them, which isn't really going to happen in this game. The Longbeards can grumble and benefit nearby units. So the plan is for them to synergize with the Hammerers, who are already pretty killy. So the Longbeards boosting them is the plan there. And the Ironbreakers up here, anyone who needs the extra rend can get it from the Rune Lord, but looking at the Gloomspite Gitz, I just assume they don't have great saves, but some of them, they're not bad in terms of armor, are they?
I don't think there's anything better than a 4 up. There might be someone with a 3 up. I did put the Amulet of Destiny on my general on the Mangler Squig, so that gives him a 5 up ward save.
I think I've got that on my general as well, who is the Warden King there with the blue cloak.
Yeah, I think that's like an auto pick, really.
It seems to be pretty much an auto include in a lot of lists. And it's helpful in this scenario as well because you want those characters to survive. And let's see. Let's dive into the first turn then. So, after the roll-off, I won the roll-off, so I think I chose to go first, didn't I?
Or did I go first? I think I won the roll-off.
I think I've gone first here, because you can see I went first. If you won the roll, I think...
Yeah, I made you go first.
Either you made me go first or I chose to go first. And I think
I made you go first.
I think I would have wanted to go first in this one.
Oh.
Because the objectives, I don't think my army is particularly fast. If you look at let's look at a bit of a wide shot of the battle for the start here, and we'll talk a little bit of strategy. So, I want to get as many turns shooting in as possible. The organ gun's going to be able to shoot turn 1. The Iron Drake's maybe not, but the organ gun's pretty tasty at shooting on its own. And I don't want the orcs to bed in on these objectives. Because if they just bounce in there, surround it with all these 2-wound models, and get a hero to claim it, it might take me a while to shift them, especially if I start spreading out my forces. You can see I'm not even thinking about this objective, by the way. I only want the centre and that one. If I can just hold 2 and succeed with my battle tactics, that should be enough to win the game then, if I ignore that one. So I want to jump right onto these objectives and take them immediately, right at the start of the game, and then hopefully it'll be too difficult for the squigs on this side to actually shift my really tough units like the Ironbreakers, Hammerers, 20 of them, they're going to dish out some pain. And that's the plan. What's your strategy going into this with your positioning?
Well, I mean, looking at the table, it definitely favours the dwarves because they are much more anvil-y units than what I've got. And if Andy just goes on the objectives, well, I've got to budge him off there, really, haven't I? And both his heroes have a lot of wounds protecting them. One hero there on the Oathstone has 20 hammerers, 10 longbeards, and 10 of the shooty guys, right?
Iron Drakes.
And the other one has got 10. He's got 20 Argonauts, whatever they're called,
and 10 Ironbreakers.
Yeah, so it's like it's not looking good from the off. if this was a sort of scenario where I could, hop on and hop off and try and get around the board and pick things off, it'd be different. But I've got no real smasher units apart from the Mangler Squig, right?
Yeah.
And so this scenario, we've both only got two leaders, and you have to be a leader to claim the objectives. So I was going to wait to see what Andy did, and I kept my units as far away from his shooting as possible. I think his organ gun could only target one of those units.
If I was looking at this from an enemy point of view against me, I would say, okay, 2 dwarf heroes, they're very slow, way slower than your heroes. If you could focus in and kill one of them before I can flip an objective, that means that if I, for example, only have the Rune Lord left and I land on this objective, it's going to take me a really long time to get back to this one, by which time there's probably a big fight going on there. You could have already claimed it and have it surrounded with squigs and your hero, and to claim it off you, I would have to land there with hero when you don't have a hero near it, or kill your hero with my hero when they're like standing right next to it.
This is true. So it was either Remington go for broke or Remington run and hide and try and pick things off. But remember, I didn't have any shooting at all. I've only got a good magic phase.
Yeah, the magic phase is the one thing that would concern me, if you were able to get spells through. And especially if you try and do them away from the Rune Lord, should I say, because he's pretty good at dispelling. So I was glad to be able to get the Rune Lord near this little wizard conclave thing that you've got there.
Sure, but you see, if I get too close to Andy's troops, they're going to beat me up. And I have to be pretty close to them to actually have effective spells. And the other thing is, of course, all these squigs have randomized movement. So either 3d6 or 2d6. So it's nothing's taken for granted with the Gloomspite Gitz. It's unfortunate, but these are the cards we've been dealt. And I promised some high action, and that's what we delivered.
So, for my battle tactic for the first round, I picked Ferocious Advance, which is the pretty standard one for going in turn 1, where you just get 3 of your units to move up if they all run and they all finish next to each other. So that's what I'm going for there. And you can see that I do accomplish it with these 3 units here, the Ironbreakers, the Arcanauts, and the Rune Lord. And I've also gotten within range to flip that objective to me as well. And down here, the Warden King has immediately jumped onto the objective there. So he's actually a little bit further away from the rest of my forces than I was hoping for, because they didn't run very far. So he's kind of left a little bit exposed there, but I do have
You're baiting me, aren't you, Andy? You're baiting me.
It's not quite an intentional bait, because he's not supposed to be that far away on his own, but I do have a plan to deal with that. And I've put a 6+ ward save onto the Hammerers, anticipating that they would get into combat, but then they didn't run very far, so it might not even happen for a while. And objective...
I mean, at this point, Andy, I was looking at the table and thinking, what units can I actually defeat in one-to-one combat? And the only unit that I was even half certain that I could defeat in a sort of slugging match was your Longbeards, because there was 10 of them. I didn't think any of my units would be able to defeat your anything else, basically. So I was in a real quandary. Do I just keep my units clustered together and try and focus on one thing, or do I spread out? I mean, it's a very difficult one to call. And so in my first turn, it took me quite a lot of deliberations to make my mind up. And then when Andy had put the bait out, even though he didn't intentionally do it because he failed a run roll or whatnot, he's got his Warden King on an objective getting points right now. And that being the most influential model in Andy's army, I thought, let's see if I can take him out with my Mangler Squig. It's a long way off, but if I can give the Mangler Squig a buff or two through the magic of the moon and through my Gobblerpalooza, it might be worth a go. I might be able to take his head.
Yeah, so I picked up points. I'm not sure if that's actually accurate there. It might have been 5 points that it's supposed to be. But I got points anyway, and if it's wrong, it was corrected later. So, with this scenario, you get extra points for your battle tactics, if I remember correctly. So not just what's written on here, you also get a bonus one. And I also got points for holding an objective, holding more than one objective, and holding more than my opponent. So I think it's actually 5 victory points I've got there. So solid start. And in your first turn, you've also gone for Ferocious Advance, which is standard.
Not a lot else I could do. The only other one I possibly could have done was to kill your general, but it was a big, tall order. One, to make the distance of the charge to get to your general, and then defeat him in the same round.
Yeah, so we've put the extra command points down there.
Yeah.
And I've chosen, for my heroic ability, to give an unbinding ability to my leader, because I think this could be a turn when magic potentially, especially, could target him, because he's kind of out there within range of everything, just sitting on his own. And if he dies, then this Mangler Squig is going to have a really easy time coming in there, flipping that objective, and then even if I kill the Mangler Squig, that objective would remain in the hands of the Gitz for the rest of the game unless I can get the Rune Lord back down here. So,
sure. Well, you can see that I managed to get my Mangler Squig within a pile-in range.
it's within. You're moving within charge range, but what I do is, I don't think you can see it yet, but I'm actually going to redeploy my Warden King to get him away and get him close to the Hammerers, so that if he wants to charge the Warden King, he's going to have to roll higher, and he's also going to have to get within pile-in range of 20 Hammerers as well.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the Mangler Squig trying to get in to combat. I'd also moved some Boingrot Bounders up, if I recall.
Yes, so it makes it more difficult for them to join in as well.
Yeah, and obviously, the way, they didn't quite do so well getting where I needed them to be. Of course, the other thing is, a lot of those units have shooting, right? The Iron Drakes have shooting. He's got the Organ Gun.
The Arcanauts have got a bit of shooting.
Sure, and then also the Ironbreakers have some kind of shooting, don't they? Don't they have some kind of little bombs?
My Ironbreakers, they don't really have any guns or anything. I think the new Ironbreaker models, they have something you could put on them. But mine are just the old classics, so I just ran them as if they didn't have any shooting.
I was really conscious of actually charging into any close proximity to Anders' shooting units, because they could do, the
Unleash Hell.
Unleash Hell.
Yeah, the key to that is it can only be done once per turn, and if you charge something else in first to absorb the Unleash Hell, so multi-charges are a good way to stop it if you've got some chaff units, or doing multiple charges in one turn if you're worried about it. If you're just charging one thing in at a time into a shooter unit, then it's much easier to use that against you.
Yeah, there is an ability that the Squigs can have, I think, or the Mangler Squig can have, as a sort of you put it on your general. It's not an artifact. I think it's a what's the other thing called? You can have it. Is it heroic ability?
Heroic abilities.
Yeah, there's like a unique thing you can choose to put on your commanders and leaders, and one of them is that you can
command traits.
Yeah, command traits. Sorry, yeah, you can have a combat round and then run away and then charge back in, or there's another one where you can, charge again or something like that, which would have been fantastic. But again, I've got to get him within range. So you can see this objective on the left. I've snuck round my my Squig, and they're 2 Squig prodders within range to claim this objective. And also to claim my battle tactics by moving 3 units up.
Yeah, because you've got a hero there who's obviously going to be claiming it.
Yeah.
And then in the middle, I redeploy my Warden King because the enemy landed close to him, because I don't want him being multi-charged, and I would rather he have the cushion of all these Hammerers behind him, so that if something charges him, they can then pile in around him and deal a furious counterattack at the very least.
It sucks so much. That does.
And because of that, that meant that this unit failed their charge.
Yes.
But the Mangler Squig did get in.
Mangler Squig got in, and it's like, I had to take that bait, really. Because the Mangler Squig gets diminishing returns when it gets wounded, up to a point. So I wanted to use him while he was at full strength for that round of attack. And you can see I've got a couple of buffs on there. I think I've got reroll hits of 1.
It's kind of a critical point, because I've got this objective with my hero. if you kill my hero with yours, because they're still within the area of this objective here, if you kill my hero and claim it, then it becomes yours. So that could be a big deal because I've only got the Rune Lord chilling up there and hiding.
Yeah, I mean, this is a scenario. Looking at it now, it might have been good to get the Hand of Gork spell, because it could really then move my Gloomspite Gitz somewhere else on the table, give Andy something else to think about, rather than this big sort of face-off we've got going on.
You've put all out attack on him. I've put all out defense on him.
Yep.
So the obvious moves, because it's pretty crucial, these heroes, and you get a lot of successful wounds, but
I've got so many wounds on you.
Look at these
saves.
Look
at that dice roll. Look at how Andy's cheating loaded dice. Unbelievable. Now bear in mind, a lot of these wounds were going to do multiple damage. Okay, so only really needed to get 3 wounds onto Andy's general, and each wound will be something like D3 damage or 2 damage. And look what he rolls. He literally, with the rend involved, I think he ended up needing 4 up saves or 5 ups, Andy?
I think it was 3s or 4s I needed, because I got him to, I think I got him to 2 up. So it would have been 3s or 4s with the various rend that you had on your different attacks.
And plus you had a ward save, but check this out. He didn't even need the ward save because he'd literally saved 9 dice. So 9 dice, none of them rolled a 1, 2, or 3. Like every single one. It was unbelievable. In the one attack round that I really needed to do some damage while the Mangler was at full strength. And boy, that Mangler puts out a shed load of damage in multiple different ways. I think I might have removed 2 hammer models there because I am a monster, and there's
yes, I think you did a wound to the Warden King with your monstrous rampage. You did something to him, yeah. Or you've got an ability that does that.
Yeah. So at this moment, my heart absolutely sank. Andy must have feeling on top of the world because you can see what's about to come next. Number 1, Andy's going to probably fight back with his Warden King, obviously. Number 2, the Hammerers are all in range for a pile-in. So is this just like amateur tactics by me? Probably yes. It's looking that way. But how do you move an immovable mountain such as the Duardin?
Well, there's an element of luck involved in the Warden King surviving. Also, if you had killed him, me then counter-attacking with the Hammerers and killing the Mangler Squig wouldn't have helped me in the scenario terms at all, because this would have just been your objective and I would have no way to claim it without the Rune Lord. So I would have had to very slowly start marching down with him to get all the objectives back to my side.
Yeah. So you can also see that now, come Andy's next turn, if he gets the next turn, he's got all that shooting aimed at the Mangler Squig.
That is true. So the Hammerers have all piled in. Quite a bit of damage done. I think we put that on remaining wounds because it was just too high a number that they did. Loads of wounds done, so it is quite diminished, but it is still alive critically. So if you can get it out of there, if you get the next turn, or if you get a... This is your turn 1, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, so if you get the double turn, you could run away from combat.
Sure. It did make me think that if I'd have, charged the Hammerers instead of the Warden King, with the amount of damage I'd put out, I could have decimated those Hammerers.
Yeah, their save isn't as good as his, so you would have killed more of them, I think.
Sure. And they wouldn't have had the ward save either. And also, heroes like a Warden King, they're not going to put out a shed load of damage. They're not. I mean, you could probably, take 2, 3, maybe 4 wounds off me. But now with the Hammerers coming in, so many attacks. They had 2 attacks each, right? And it's like 3s and 3s.
I think they had something buffed as well.
Right, 2 damage each or something.
So I think the key thing with Age of Sigmar now is how many combats. It's always kind of been important, actually, because even back in the first edition of the game, when you're doing your attack priorities, it used to be you want an odd number of combats, so you're picking who goes first in each one more than your opponent is. So that makes sense, doesn't it? And now, I think you want if it's your turn to attack, you probably want to be attacking more than one thing if your enemy has a unit that they can make almost unkillable with the buffs that can only be applied to one unit at a time. So,
Sure. I
yeah,
mean, the
you're looking at
Gitz
things like
have a
all-out defense because you can't... I don't think you had any way of boosting your rend, really, did you?
No.
So, allowing the Warden King to get that really juicy high save, which with some things, it's going to be even better because you're not going to be facing the rend of a Mangler Squig every day. So you saw in a previous game where I had, for example, the Knight Zeros, who was able to get his save to a really good place, and I'd put a ward save on him as well and was constantly using like Finest Hour and all these things on him, all the different buffs, and you were finding it really tough to shift him. So if you're attacking multiple things at once, there's only so far you can spread these things that require command points and heroic abilities to be used.
Absolutely. I mean, the Gits have a spell called Itchy Nuisance, which could be pretty useful because it means I can choose one of your units in combat and make them go last. So that could be useful, right? If you've got
Potentially.
multiple.
Not so much this
things
turn,
going
but yeah, in
No.
general that would be nice. So
No,
lots
so
of
this was
wounds
sort
done.
of inevitable, really. Do I now, if I get the next turn, do I try and run away with the Mangler Squig, or do I fight on, or do I try and get more units piling in there?
Well, if you got the next turn, I think the sensible move would be the heavily wounded Mangler Squig, who you need alive in order to get victory points in this game. Get away as fast as you can and pile everything else in there, I would suggest. Because if he stays in there, all your other units aren't going to kill enough of my stuff to stop him being killed, and he's also in shooting range for my next turn as well if he stays there. So
yeah, and it'd probably still be in shooting range anyway because it'd have diminished movement.
Unless you're
But
really
anyway, I can't
confident
remember
that
what
by
happened.
staying there you'd be going first and you want to try and eat my Warden King, who would of course be buffed up to the eyeballs again, but if you wanted one more chance at killing him, then staying there would be the best option.
I did have. I also had. I think the command ability I actually chose on the Mangler was tough and leathery, so it gave me 2 extra wounds on the Mangler Squig. So I'd already buffed him up best I could, and I tried to use heroic recovery on him, and I think I actually recovered 1 wound with that.
Now, here's an issue that you're running into. At the end of the round, I had 1 command point left, which, okay, you ideally want to be spending all of them, but you can see I've spent a lot. But you've ended with 4 command points remaining.
Yeah.
So obviously, there are times passing in the turn where you have the opportunity to use them, and you think, I'll hold on to that. It reminds me of if you're playing like an RPG on the PC, and you're holding on to all your potions, thinking, I'll save it for the big fight, and then you finish the game and you've got a whole pack full of potions.
Yeah, that makes sense, Andy. I mean, I suppose I could have used them to re-roll some of the failed charges, right?
You've always got the option to use them for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I could have put all-out defense.
I think I did shoot at something that you could have used it on. Especially in the first turn, there aren't that many great opportunities to use them, so you should probably just spend them whenever the chance comes up in the first turn.
Yeah.
That's what I think anyway. Command points are an interesting one though, because there are a lot of abilities in the game that allow you to do the same thing that you could get for the spending of a command point. Things that let you reroll charges, or +1 to your armor save. All these things that you would use a command point for, you can also do with other abilities. So I'd be interested to hear what all the pro players think about when are the best times to spend command points, what kind of units do you want to spend them on, if you've got an army that has access to a lot of those abilities for free already. Because sometimes you end up with quite a few left over.
Yeah.
So going into the next turn, I think I get the roll off, I win, so I'm going to be going first in round 2, which is what you don't want, because I'm planning to just shoot off the Mangler Squig and then charge the Hammerers into something else, and just keep you at bay, just get in there, kill as much as possible, try and wipe out units. And
now you can see, if the Mangler Squig is going to get killed, my units are divided, and they're not that strong.
I think your issue is that you chose these units here to get your battle tactic with, but that's keeping 3 strong fighting units away from where all the fighting is.
Yeah.
Because I'm not actually bothered about this objective at all. You've got a couple of things heading in the direction of this one. I've got nothing at all worried about this objective. I'm just putting all my eggs in this double.
Yeah, perhaps I should have
here.
focused on the center with everything.
I think if you just sent this unit down as well, ignored this up here, these are all 3 slow units. The
Yeah.
Arcanauts have only got mostly short-range shooting. Their shooting's not that great. So they're going to be getting very slowly if they want to join in the game again. So I don't think that unit needs to bother, really. I think if you could... Well, they may have to, because you might have to kill the Rune Lord at some point and then get this hero all the way down there. But it's not looking good if the Mangler dies for you.
Not at all.
So
of course, I should have put more faith in the Loon Shrine, because had you actually took off any of my units there of squigs, I could always have a chance to bring some back.
that is true. So for my battle tactic in this round, I picked Slay the Warlord, obviously, because your heavily wounded Warlord is just sitting right in front of me.
Yeah.
So obvious time to play that. And I'm just surrounding this area with my units here. I'm putting them in a position, because once I flip this to me, it's not under threat anymore, because you've got no heroes over here that could claim it for you. So nobody has to hang around here, so I'm just moving them this way a little bit, so they can start heading towards the fight in the middle when the time comes. And in the centre, I'm just unleashing everything. And let's see, so the Grumble here, what does that even say? Grumble...
Yeah, it gave your hammerers some kind of buff.
Oh yeah, put your back into it, it is. So yeah, that's what it's called. So it buffs up the hammerers, basically, for the combat. Because I was actually hoping to charge them into something further away, to be honest. But I don't think I actually killed you with the shooting.
Is it something like if you roll a 6 to hit, then it's an auto-mortal wound or something like that? Or does it do an extra damage or something?
It's something tasty. But I think I managed to shoot off some of these, because I don't actually put all my shooting into the Mangler Squig, because I think I'm so confident I'm going to kill it. It's barely alive. So I'll shoot something at these as well. And I take out a few of your squigs.
You took 3 Boingrod Bounders off, and you killed my scaremonger Gobblerpalooza guy that encourages my units to charge better.
But because of that, that means that I didn't put enough shooting onto the Mangler Squig. So I had to kill it in combat, meaning I couldn't charge off and attack anyone else. So I've got a potential double turn of all your stuff piling into the middle. But crucially, scenario terms, it's very important, because you've got nobody to claim this now, or the one up there. So I'm just sitting pretty with objectives, and your hero right at the bottom is going to have to come and join in the fight and sweep his way through my whole army.
It's literally looking like Andy's got this at the start of the halfway through the second turn.
It is looking that way, because I've been able to get my battle tactics as well.
Yeah.
And there's how it's looking. So I've been shooting a few models off. It's tougher than it looks to chew through them, though, with them having 2 wounds each. So it's definitely not all over, but it's not looking good, because the Gitz have barely killed anything so far. Have you even killed a model yet?
I've killed 2 hammerers, I believe, and took a wound or 2 off your Warden King.
Yeah, not much. And on to the end of that round, you can see, yeah, I corrected the first turn, because I think it should have been 5 points, and then 5 for this one as well, which is pretty much the maximum you can get. And these guys here.
Yeah.
I think, do you manage to bring them back to life with a bit of rally?
Yeah, I did a rally. I did rally on them. So if you roll a 6, you roll a dice for each model, and for every 6 you roll, you can bring back a model. And so I rolled 3 dice, because 3 had died, and one of them I rolled a 6. So that was
I think you may have got 2 actually. I'm not sure. But in your next round, you've picked Savage Spearhead, so that means 2 or more units from your starting army wholly within opponent's territory. And I did raise an eyebrow at this one, thinking, I don't see how you're going to do that. Because you want to be fighting, and we're kind of fighting down the centre line. How are you going to be wholly within my territory? I wasn't sure. Was there some master plan behind that?
Well, I ran out of actual things that were possible. One was like kill the general, and one was do that. They didn't seem to be applicable to my situation at all. None of them seemed doable that turn, so I picked the one that seemed the most doable.
There are a few that involve like flipping objectives to your side, but you definitely weren't in a position to do that, since your only hero is all the way down in the bottom left.
So you can see my other unit of Boingrot Bounders there has approached this side of the table, I was hoping maybe I could get in and get a long bomb charge into his Rune Lord on that objective, and 5 Boingrot Bounders on the charge could have a decent chance of putting out some damage there. But of course, they were then faced with sort of stand and shoot from
Unleash hell from the Arcanauts.
and that's what they did.
And most of them died. I think I would have just ignored this half of my army completely and gone for the middle. Because your leader isn't going to get up here probably by the end of the game, with all the fighting he's got to join in with. So I would have just focused on the middle, I think.
I did want some sort of distraction, otherwise you'd just stick your Rune Lord over there and put all the rest of your units in the middle. At least that's what I would have done.
You did get these squigs into combat with the hammerers, though.
Yeah, they managed to get in, so that was fun. You're right, Andy. I did manage to get 2 of those back. Or it might have been the other unit that got decimated by shooting. It was, wasn't it? So, yeah. So these got some tasty revenge. I can't remember what happened. I'm sure I killed a few more.
You will do. And yeah, there's definitely quite a few hammerers missing here. And then they take out a few in revenge, though.
Sure. Yeah,
so it's quite a bloody battle there.
I can't remember what happened with my squigs and my normal squig hoppers. I think they tried to do something.
You can see that this unit that was whittled down to 1 model with Unleash Hell just dies in combat, as you'd expect, after killing an Arcanaut.
Yeah, but of course this now gives me an opportunity to see if I can roll on the Loon Shrine and bring them back home. But yeah, you can see on the left there that I've changed the angle of where my squigs are and where my squig hoppers are and my Loon Boss. And now finally I've decided, yeah, let's try and contest the middle ground there a bit. So I've moved as far as I can anyway. It's just too far to get a charge in.
So it's still winnable for you at this stage, because the way I'm looking at it is, if you can get like a double turn, for example, you can get your Loon Boss to charge my Warden King and kill him, which may be a long shot, but you can definitely attempt it. Then that would give you the central objective. You would have 2 of the objectives with more than half the game remaining to score more points than me. And if you could then start achieving your battle tactics, it's still not all over at this point.
This is true. At the top there, you can see the Gobblerpalooza. I don't know. I don't really know what they're doing up there, because they're too far to do any kind of decent damage output. I think I might have done an arcane bolt. Yeah, I might have unleashed an arcane bolt, and it may have took a wound off one of your leaders.
I think they would have been useful on the other side of the table, away from the only character that can regularly dispel things.
Yeah, but you see, I've got multiple spells and buffs, so I wasn't too worried. You'd only be able to dispel one of those.
So at the end of that turn, you barely pick up anything because you weren't able to complete the battle tactic. So
genius, right?
The difference is building. You did spend all your command points this time, though. And then for some reason, I've taken a picture of the endless spell page here, or the wizard page.
Yeah, because I decided to introduce the endless spell into the game that I paid 100 points for, by the way. You might think that was wasted, but yeah, I bought Mork's Mighty Mushroom. So one of my wizards could be the game changer, which is basically an atomic mushroom bomb right in the middle of Andy's dwarves.
It doesn't come up yet.
No.
But you will see that I do win the roll-off here. So again, it's not the double turn yet for the Gitz that they want. And for my battle tactic, I picked Broken Ranks. So pick 1 battle line unit from your opponent's starting army, complete the battle tactic if that unit is destroyed during this turn. So, which unit do I select? Which one was it? Did you have a battle line unit right here?
I don't think so, no.
You had a battle line unit somewhere that I murdered anyway.
Yeah, it might have been the Squig Hoppers.
Yeah, so I think they were in a good position to be finished off. So I think I achieved that, so I got my battle tactic again. And I've won this combat in the middle. The hammerers are dwindling, but they've done what they needed to do. And Finest Hour on the hero as well, which turned into a bit of a waste in the end, Finest Hour. Because what I wanted to do was shoot down the final squig and then charge him into these. And that's why I've got Finest Hour on him, because I wanted him to use it in that combat. But it turned out to be a total waste because he was stuck fighting the squigs because all my shooting failed this turn. So he just had finest hour to fight one squig in the middle. So a bit of a waste of that heroic ability there.
Oh, I don't think I'd be too concerned about that, Andy. But one thing that could be quite a game changer is that I failed my role to bring back the squigs and to get them to come out of the Loon Shrine.
That is
So
true.
it's a 4-up, and I failed it. Fortunately, it's a 50-50. So they're gone forever.
And here, I think I've shot off some of your little wizard coven here.
Yeah, so they do have. Yeah, I think they might have a -1 to hit still. It might just be in the first turn. Might be -2 to hit them in the first turn. Can't quite remember, but yeah, they've only got 3 wounds each. So yeah, it could have been worse, I guess.
It's worth pointing out as well that the Bad Moon totally bypassed the best point on the battlefield and just flew all the way onto my territory, didn't it?
This is true. I think I rolled a 6, so it moves 2 quadrants. So if anything could go wrong for me in this game, it really did. So my general fluff, the Bad Moon only worked in the first, only worked in the second round only, or the first round. I can't remember which. Yeah, first round. It only was good for that. And that's kind of it, really. So my last ace up the sleeve, if you like, was Mork's Mighty Mushroom. But it might be another turn before I can get that one off.
I think it's this turn that you're going to try to unleash that. So, at the end of that, I got another maximum points because I did kill the battle line unit. And we are spending our command points, though. And then your general's dead, so you're getting less, though. So on your turn 3, you choose that you're going to try and kill the Longbeards to achieve your battle tactic in this turn. So 10 of them in the unit. And you're going to try and pile everything into them by the looks of things. I wouldn't have bothered, to be honest. I would have been going straight for my leader with your leader and other things. Because if you could kill him and have your leader there on the objective, that could potentially put you back in it, scoring-wise.
Well, I've just noticed that the unit that you killed was not battle line, so you shouldn't have got points for that. But there you go.
Was that the right unit, though?
No. The squigs, Boingrot Bounders are not battle line.
It could have been a different unit that I killed.
Squig Hoppers and Squig Herd are. So
Let's see.
Anyway, I managed to get the Mork's Mighty Mushroom off, which is pretty cool. 6d6 range, and you can put it anywhere in there. So I did, and then come the shooting phase, which is of course after the magic phase and the hero phase. I was able to put out some tasty damage to every unit in the vicinity of that mushroom. Of course, Andy rolled all the vital saving throws as per usual.
Well, we'll see what damage it does in a second, actually. Because, look at that, there's lots of hammerers there. And now there's way less hammerers there. So, things are dying as a result of that mushroom.
I did kill an organ gun crew or 2.
You did. I think I started off with 2 models, so one of them should have been removed, but there was only 2 to start with, so one of them's actually gone. But up here, you do make it in with your charges, and you're focusing on the Longbeards to try and get your battle tactic.
Yeah, and you can see there that there's been 2 Iron Drakes killed as well by the mushroom.
Yes.
Which is nice. I think they're mortal runes, which is amazing because, of course, all your units have decent saving throws.
I think I did unleash hell on them as well this turn because units were landing close enough to them, but I don't think they actually achieved much with it, did they?
No, but you can see there that, well, I can see anyway, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I've lost 4 Squig Hoppers. So that's 8 wounds you managed to take off through shooting.
Over the course of the game.
Yes, and you can see that my loon boss has taken a wound there on his way in to getting into those Longbeards.
You're whittling down the Longbeards as well, but it's not going to be enough probably to kill them in this round, so that's another battle tactic wasted, potentially.
Yeah, this is, again, if I'd used Hand of Mork in the first turn, it might have been a different... get them really close a lot sooner.
There's barely any hammerers left now. I think there's only 2 left. The king is wounded as well. But you're not really finishing off units, is the problem.
No, it's true. I really could have done with those hammerers being killed. And now look, if you look, I've got units in the vicinity of Mork's Mighty Mushroom shooting attack. So come next round, I could be in for some friendly fire there.
So that's how that one's looking. So again, you get a point because you're holding an objective that I'm not contesting at all, and you failed with your battle tactic again. So it's looking really bleak for the Gitz at the moment. And the next round, I am going first again, so no double turn, and we haven't flipped over the battle tactic. In fact, I think we were in a rush at this point because you had to leave, so we just didn't bother with battle tactics for any more turns. So let's see what's going on here. I decided not to dispel this because you've got loads of things in range of it as well. And yes. I've got more bodies down there, so I thought, well, why not just let it go nuts and see.
Well, it killed another 3 Iron Drakes there, so that's been pretty potent. It might have done another wound on the organ gun, and phenomenally, the hammer has still survived.
It killed some of your squigs as well, I think, the mushroom.
It killed 3 squighoppers. It killed some squigs. I can't remember if any of my squigs ran away. I don't think they did, because if they run away, there's a chance that they could inflict mortal wounds as they're running amok. And I didn't get the opportunity to do that, so you must have either killed them in combat or shot them.
You can see everyone's just slowly getting killed here. In combat, there's not that many models left in the middle, which is good for me because I've still got a full army up in the top right, which hasn't even had to move because the battle's not really in trouble at this point.
I must add to this, my loon boss fluffed all his attacks, even though I'd used command points to try and buff him. It was really terrible.
But these guys, I haven't even bothered to move them to join in the game because I was just saving a bit of time, and it's not necessary because...
I mean, you literally could have won the game with half the points. Because you got your Arcanauts there, your Rune Lord, and your Iron Breakers, which did almost nothing in the whole game. So, I mean, how many points are all those guys worth? 500? 400? I mean, it's
closer to 400 probably. They're not that expensive.
So Andy's basically looks like Andy's crushed my army with just 600 of his points. Ish. But yeah, it doesn't look like much to play for. What you didn't notice is my Gobblerpalooza did a redeploy and got out of range of the charge of Andy's Arcanauts and out of their shooting range. So I might as well reveal it now, but my grand strategy that I chose was to keep at least one model that is a wizard alive.
Mine was to kill all your heroes. So obviously, usually those two things would conflict a little bit, but you've got non-hero wizards in your army, so it's a little bit of an exception. And in your turn, not much is being accomplished, and I think at that point you pretty much decide we should end it there because you've only got like 3 models left.
What we did, Andy, I think we just had time to do another round of combat with. It was just for my own pride, really. Could I actually destroy even one of Andy's units? So I think we just rolled off the loon boss on the giant squig, and he did manage to kill those long beards, thank goodness. So there's some bit of pride left there.
Yeah, so that's the final picture. Obviously, it didn't go very well for the Gitz, but it could have been very different if you'd got luckier with the rolls and killed the Warden King in turn 1 and you had the 2 objectives. I would have had to actually bring this whole half of the army down to join in the fight. I would have been chasing it a little bit. But I think overall...
It's very frustrating for me.
I think a lot of your units are quite expensive for how powerful they actually are.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps I should have put the Borngrot Bounders into one big unit. But the danger of that, of course, is they've got low bravery. So I might have been removing models without them even fighting. So that was on my mind. Terrible deployment at the start of the game, for sure. No shooting. I'm considering bringing the Squig Gobber next time. But those attacks for the Squig Gobber deals out, they don't really do any rend. The one thing that was really amazing was the power of Mork's Mighty Mushroom. So that's that. But in terms of things to defeat you in combat, it's not good at all for the Gitz. Not good at all.
So Tim says, do dwarves have some kind of natural defense against magic? Not particularly, but the Rune Lord does get +2 to unbinding rolls, but obviously he can only unbind 1 spell a turn. So he's kind of on his own doing that. He also says, this is a question to you. Did you tell Andy you were going to play with a fluffy army before he steamrolled you with his net list? Let's concentrate on your half of the question first.
I think Andy can pretty much is always certain that I'm going to bring a fairly fluffy army. But Andy does actually use his brain when he's constructing his army, where I just use my eyes and say, "Does it look good? Would they really fight together in real life?" I'm thinking those sort of questions.
So you've gone for a themed
Yeah.
squig army. What I've gone for is, I knew I was going to use the dwarves. I wanted to cram some Kharadron Overlords in there to give me a bit of a taste of them, since I want to get the army up and running once I've got more painted. And I'd heard that Hammerers and Iron Drakes were good. So I just put those in the army first, and then threw a couple of heroes in. There wasn't a lot of thought actually put into the dwarf army list, but some of the elements of it did synergize quite well. The ability of the Longbeards to buff up a nearby unit was very useful for the Hammerers, with the amount of pain they dished out. They did die eventually, but they took a lot out with them. And without them, I don't think the Warden King would have had much of a chance against the Mangler Squig. I think the key point, though, in the game was when the Warden King redeployed back to the Hammerers and then didn't die when you charged him. It was risky me putting him out there in turn 1, because it's not guaranteed that he was going to run all the way back to the Hammerers. He could have just run away 1 inch and been stuck there. And then if you got a double turn, he could have been fighting multiple units for 2 turns. So it was a risky move, but it paid off.
Did your Warden King have only 2 wounds left?
That's 2 wounds he suffered during the game, so he was barely scratched.
Wow. I mean, I'm looking at that. I actually did do a fair amount of damage in the centre, all in all. So if I'd have focused on that centre from the very start, I might have been able to take out take out your shooting and your combat units there. I don't know. I'm trying to think. It was a way that I could have won. I mean, look, your Arcanauts didn't really get into any fighting situations, and there's loads of them. And you've got high bravery and unique characters. So that's the thing. It's so hard to get the dwarves off the table without rend or mortal wounds.
So,
and then you didn't even need to use your your what's it called, iron breakers. So I would have liked to have seen what they were like.
My army is slow, and my army was split in 2. Your army is really fast. So I think, even though obviously you've got to think about the objectives right from the start of the game, I think you could have ignored the objective in the bottom left at the start of the game and just sent all your units to fight the centre. Because your heroes are so fast that when you win the fight in turn 2 or 3, you can then hop away and start looking at objectives. These guys would have been caught quite far away. There's no guarantee that they would actually make it into combat with you straight away if the fight was taking place like around here. It would have taken them a turn or 2 to get there. And even then, the Iron Breakers and the Arcanauts aren't that great at fighting. It's the Hammerers that are really doing all the damage, and then the shooting of the Organ Gun and the Iron Drakes. So I think if you'd, instead of going down there to get that objective and getting your battle tactic, I think if instead you just brought all the Squig Hopper units and your 2 heroes into the middle and tried to get charges in on some of my shooter units as well, and just ploughed everything in there, you would have had more of a chance. Because as it was, I was fighting 2 units at a time, and then the rest of them came in, and it wasn't that difficult to deal with them.
Yeah, that's decent advice. I do think if I had won that situation, it would have come at a very heavy price. And, by turn 4 or 5, you would be in a possible situation where you could just polish me off. But I might have claimed just enough victory points by then. I think I just went for the side objective because it just seemed like an easy way of claiming some points.
There's also the option that you could have just sent that hero there on his own and not worried about the battle tactic. Use the battle tactic on different units and then not send any other units down there with him. Because it was clear
I could have longed this out for sure. I could have longed this game out.
I definitely wasn't committing any forces down there, so I don't think you needed those 2 units in that corner.
I didn't realise just how good the Hammerers were at dealing out damage. So it's like if there's one unit you'd have wanted to get into the Manglers, it probably would have been your Hammerers, and that's exactly what you did. So perhaps sending my Mangler on to a different target might have been better, or having 2 Manglers.
Why not?
My new philosophy.
2 Manglers, Goblobber. There's all kinds of things you can test out in your list.
Yeah, and look, I haven't even got onto my Troggoths or my standard goblins. I've got a load of stuff I never even got to use. I quite enjoyed the Gobblerpalooza, to be fair. And I really like the mighty mushroom. That was a lot of fun.
So Tim also asks, how are the airships going? When are we going to see them? Well, this is how they're going at the moment. This is the gun hauler, which isn't finished being assembled yet, because it is in the queue, but the next thing I'm going to finish is the Lord Imperatant. That's the last Stormcast I'm going to finish for the moment. So he's coming along nicely. I expect him finished within a few days, along with a few more, just a little handful of Bad Squiddo Winter Soviets. So they're not going to take very long, and when they're done, the next thing is that gun hauler. That's going to be the next thing painted. And then when that's done, or while that's being painted, then I'm also going to be assembling some of the other stuff from that Start Collecting Kharadron Overlords box, so maybe some of the Thunderers. And then when they're done, obviously I'm going to need more of them. So that's the plan. I think the Lord Imperatant, he's a bit of a spicy, quite powerful hero in the new Stormcast army, and he lines up nicely with some of the other units that I've got already painted. So that's the reason I want to do him. I'm going to leave the other, there's a couple of other heroes and the battle line unit, the Vindictors, which I've got just primed in black here. I'm going to leave them for a while because I've got a billion Stormcast. I don't need just another battle line unit when I've got loads, and I can run the different storm hosts that allow other things to be battle line anyway, so that's not a priority. And what about you, Mr. Rem? What are you working on?
Well, you know, if we can find time to do more battles, there's still so many armies that I've not had a chance to really play with that I've got full painted armies for, such as my dwarves, such as my my wood elves, you know, or wanderers. I only ever played with the wanderers once, and that was with the idea, and that was a lot of fun actually. They did really well, so that'd be pretty cool. I think I'd love to be able to fight some different matchups, Andy. You know, because I've only ever played Skaven once, and that was really good. I've never played against sort of something like a Slaneshi army or a Tzeentchian army. I think so. Yeah, but I've got my Cruel Boys well on their way now, building a force, especially with the new models coming out. So I might go into town tomorrow and pick up one of the Cruel Boy monsters.
You know,
So I've got my Dark Elves, and then I've got huge Cities of Sigmar army as well.
what got me thinking actually, Tim, I think it was Tim, was asking whether there are any like doubles tournaments we can go to, and that is something that I'm keeping an eye out for. I'm looking out for Age of Sigmar tournaments in general because I've never been to one, and it's a great way to learn. But one of the reasons it's a great way to learn is because you play against multiple different armies and different people playing them, so they show you tricks that you've not seen before, usually units and armies that you haven't played against much, if at all. So what we can do, now that in-person gaming is well and truly back on the menu, we could actually try and find some people and maybe have a game each running at a time at Warhammer World, for example, and then swap over and play against the other player, and then maybe a doubles game or something. There's different things we can do to get exposed to different armies, and Warhammer World is obviously a prime place to do it. There's plenty of people around here that can play.
So when you have doubles tournaments, is it 2,000 points or is it more points because there's potentially two?
I don't know what the standard point level is for a doubles tournament. I haven't really found one to look into it that deeply yet.
And the other question is, would you get more time per game? You know what I mean? Because you could see that a doubles game might sort of take a bit longer, right?
Tim says tomorrow is the start of the Moscow AOS GT, 60 teams.
Wow, man. So yeah, what are you bringing, Tim? Are you going to it? Sounds cool, man. But yeah, do you know what? Even though I got absolutely annihilated, I did enjoy playing the Gloomspite Gitz a lot. And I know there's probably a lot of shenanigans and things I can do to make them a bit more powerful. But when I looked at a list of sort of recent tournament results compiled, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Gloomspite Gitz were actually the worst performing army.
I wouldn't be surprised because they do seem overcosted for what they do in points. And the Duardin forces here, although they did quite well, I'm probably not going to use them in AOS again. Because I was looking at it as kind of a gateway to get me back into the Kharadron short bearded spirit. And I am looking forward to playing them, but it's a pretty high model count for me, that army that I was playing there. And just moving them, I find it kind of annoying and you end up just pushing them and not really
Yeah.
thinking too deeply about their positioning around each other and how close they are together and whether that's optimal. And I don't like playing in a lazy way like that. I like it where there's a limited number of models, like the Stormcast, and I can think carefully about where each one is going. I don't like to just push everything forward with a broom.
Yeah,
So
I
your
understand that.
little movement trays are handy, but they do limit you in
Sure.
how close the models are together sometimes as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you can see your Arcanauts there. They weren't really necessary at all, and so they must have felt a bit of a waste, really.
In this army,
You
it
know,
did feel like a bit of a waste because all the power was elsewhere. They were just there for the Kharadron Overlords flavour, I think. And I am actually thinking about repainting the bases of that army, because when I did them, it was quite a few years ago now, those Overlords, and
Yeah.
I think my taste in basing has become a lot more advanced since then. So what I'm thinking of doing is, I don't know if I'm going to peel the grass off or just leave it there, but I'm thinking of adding some kind of snow into the mix.
That'd be cool. I mean,
Because
I've
I
still
saw
got.
a really nice snowy Kharadron Overlords army on Facebook, and that kind of inspired me. So I don't know if I'm going to get rid of the old basing, maybe cut the bases off entirely and start again, or just put snow over what I've already done. I need to decide what's going to be best, but I am going to snow them up a bit because I think that'll look nice with the blue.
Sure. I mean, I've got a lot of those Age of Sigmar bases, that you can that I've got on my Gloomspite Gitz. I can't remember what they're called. Do you remember what they're called? Those bases, and they're all sort of carved already.
I know the ones you mean.
Got the box still somewhere.
Is it like broken,
Yeah, Broken Realms, or maybe
shattered something?
Shattered Dominion, Shattered Realms, or something. And I've got a bunch of 20, 25-inch ones and 30-inch ones that I don't think I'm going to use anytime soon. So you can have some of them if you.
Well,
Because I've used them specifically for the Gloomspite Gitz army, but the Gitz now are pretty rounded out. I was tempted to buy the start collecting box for the Gitz, so I could get a Loon boss, the one with the moon face, which is kind of a cool model, and it's a cheap hero too. And then obviously more squigs as well, and a few trolls. But I do have a bunch of trolls already, Fairwater Troggoths. And I also wanted to bring Mollog, but he's really expensive. Mollog's like 175 points, and he only deals out something like D3 damage a turn, if that.
so
But he is a mountain to move, so I thought he would be a good model to have to just claim objectives.
for anyone who's stuck around to this point in the video, thank you, obviously, even though we finished talking about the game a little while ago. So, on the weekly Andy and Rem show, I've got a new resolution, which is going to be revealed now, which is to try and have guests on as many weeks as possible, just to try and make it more exciting, drive those viewing figures up.
Yeah,
and
it
keep
puts
it
less
spicy.
pressure on me to carry the show as well, Andy, doesn't it?
To carry the 10% of the show that you currently carry the burden for, yes. So,
having said that, check out my channel, guys.
yes,
Remington,
do check out Remington's channel, which is always in the video description. Don't forget to like the video, obviously. Don't forget to subscribe if for some weird reason you haven't. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description, including the juicy ones like Patreon, of course. You can donate all your life savings to this channel to keep it afloat during these dark, turbulent times. We can act as the beacon of light, the lighthouse, keeping you away from the rocky shores of hobby oblivion and guiding you into the serene waters of hobby fulfillment instead. And with that, let's have a look. Thumbnail, there we go. Battle of the Duardin and the Gloomspite Gitz. The Duardin reign supreme on this occasion. Who's going to be doing battle next time? Probably somebody up against the Stormcast for a little while before the Overlords are ready, but we'll see. And until next time, Mr. Remington, would you like to bid the audience farewell?
Bid the audience farewell, of course. Thanks for coming, and I hope to see you soon, man. Bye-bye.
And don't forget, what you seek is seeking you. And all that remains to be said is good night out there, whatever you are.